The story begins with a worker who hesitates before cutting his own hand. Suddenly, his boss arrives and says, "I've arranged your insurance papers." After hearing this, the worker goes ahead and cuts his fingers. In the next scene, we meet our hero, Suk, an insurance inspector. He arrives to stop this man, who forces his workers to injure themselves so he can claim their insurance money. While he gives his workers a little money, he keeps the majority of the insurance for himself. Suk catches him red-handed and beats him severely. He asks, "Do you even have insurance?" and grabs the weapon the man was about to use on his workers' fingers. Then, the scene shifts to our female lead, Seol, who is crafting something from wood. During her work, she accidentally cuts her finger, yet her face shows no reaction. Returning to the villain, the police have now arrested him. He is facing charges for billions of money fraud and insurance. Suk then enters his company, where a woman stops him and says, "Because of you, we've lost another group contract." Suk responds calmly, "I have saved money, didn't I? We'll use it for future contracts." He walks toward his desk, but a co-worker stops him, saying, "You should have told the police first." Suk says, "You know they never arrive on time." Another co-worker adds, "Do you remember that girl, Rin?" Then we see Suk, who has arrived at a hospital. A woman is crying in front of a female police officer, explaining, "My divorce happened a long time ago, and we have been struggling ever since." Suk watches silently, his anger evident, before he walks inside. We then see a young girl named Rin, her body burned and her left eye covered with a patch. Suk observes her carefully. A flashback takes us 1 year earlier, where this girl is sitting with Suk. She explains, "My eyes used to hurt, so I used to rub them often. One morning, the pain became unbearable, but my mother gave me pocket money, which made me happy." She hands Suk a coin and says, "You can play video games with this." Suk takes the coin, but he is visibly angry. Back in the present, Suk looks sad and frustrated. The girl tries to comfort him, saying, "It was just an accident." She begins to explain further that she accidentally spilled noodles all over herself. At the same time, Suk arrives at the girl's mother, who is talking about buying a car. Suk confronts her, saying, "Do you know how much insurance money you are about to receive? 5 million for lost vision and 7 million for burns." It becomes clear that Rin's mother did all of this on purpose to claim the insurance money. Suk is furious. "I'll make sure you go to jail," he shouts. The scene then shifts to a royal auction house filled with paintings. Here, an employee named Miss Kim is there, and a man next to her is admiring one of the paintings. Meanwhile, our heroine, Seol, is in her dressing room holding a sharp tool. She goes to the auction and tears the painting apart. Before the auction starts, she instructs the staff to remove it. Miss Kim stops her and asks, "Why did you do this?" Seol explains, "The painting was fake. If it had been sold, we would have faced legal consequences, and you would have been questioned too." Seol gets angry and retorts, "You don't even know which paintings are real and which are fake." Actually, Seol is the head art auctioneer and team leader at Royal Auction, the nation's leading art auction house. The scene cuts to Suk, who is standing in front of a memorial where the girl's ashes are kept. A photo of the girl makes it seem like she was his sister. We then flash back to the past. Suk is by her body, crying. Another man is standing nearby, smiling slightly. This man could be her fiancé or husband. The story then shows a courtroom scene where the girl's death is declared an accident. The man responsible is released, which enrages Suk. He almost attacks him. Back in the present, we see Suk running and arriving at a location where an elderly couple is unloading some belongings. Another flashback shows Suk at his sister's funeral. His sister had told him she was going out with her boyfriend. Suk then examines some insurance documents. It is revealed that her boyfriend, Soo, is the nominee, meaning he would inherit all the insurance money after her death. Another scene shows Soo leaving the courtroom, receiving a 1-year sentence for his involvement. In the present, Suk is still observing everything. He says to himself, "This time, I won't be fooled." Here, the auction finally begins at the auction house, where the auctioneer is Seol. Then the bidding starts on the paintings, and the last painting attracts 2 bidders. In the end, one man wins it for a staggering 5.3 billion won. After the auction, the after-party begins. Kim is drinking heavily. Han-seol arrives and stands next to another woman, talking about Kim. The other woman says she seems to be an associate auctioneer, and she doesn't like her at all. From a distance, Kim is watching them. The man who bought the painting is also observing Han-seol. Han-seol steps outside, taking a deep breath. The man, whose name is Jun Byum, comes out too and asks her, "Are you okay?" She replies, "Yes, I'm fine." He says, "I used to place online bids before, but the real fun is bidding in person." Han-seol then says, "I have seen you before. I never forget a face I've seen once." He removes his glasses and looks at her intently. They shake hands and look at each other. Then Kim approaches. She compliments Jun Byum and talks about the auction. Han-seol encourages them to continue their discussion and leaves. Miss Kim then hands her card to him, but he gets angry and throws it away, saying, "You shouldn't have come." Meanwhile, Han-seol is in the dressing room, preparing to take some tablets. Kim arrives there as well. Han-seol scolds her lightly. "We're still on the job. You smell of alcohol, and you shouldn't be in front of VIPs like this. You need to be careful." Kim teases back, "Are you angry because I came between you two?" They continue their playful conversation. Kim says, "If your secrets were revealed to everyone, I'd enjoy seeing your face. Take all the time you want, because I'm not letting you go." The scene shifts to Suk. He receives a call from Kim. She tells him, "I want to tell you about a murder that happened because of insurance." She gives him her address and says she will explain everything to him. Suk leaves his room and finds Inspector Ju Young lying on a sofa. He tells her everything, and she agrees to join him. They arrive at a hotel basement. Suk tries to call Kim, but suddenly someone falls from above. It's Kim, falling from the top of the building. She dies on impact. Suk realizes it's her, because her phone is still ringing. The next day, we see Kim's postmortem. The doctor explains that her death was caused by the fall from the building. The doctor explains that Kim's bones were completely broken, which caused her death. He also notes that she had been in a struggle before. There were marks on her neck. Ju Young reports all of this to her senior officer, Pyo Song. He says, "You and I will handle this case together." Suk still believes that I let his sister's killer go free. Meanwhile, Suk is with Rin. She is still telling the police that noodles had spilled on her. Suk, along with a friend, Yun, decides, "We'll come here every day so that she feels like she's not alone." He also thinks about Kim and wonders, if she was going to die, why did she call me? She must have been trying to reveal something to me. Next, we see Kim's co-workers attending her funeral. The woman who had been with her that night watches them. Here, Suk manages to sneak into the Royal Auction building. He stops in front of a mirror, and suddenly the lights go out. Then lights start flickering back on, moving as if alive. Just then, Han-seol walks past him and stops, adjusting her hair before walking straight ahead. Suk also moves forward, and the lights continue to flicker. At the same time, Han-seol arrives at her president's office, visibly worried. The president says, "What is happening here? If this continues, my company could shut down," she exclaims. Just then, the manager runs in, saying, "The police are here for questioning." Han-seol responds, "I'll handle talking to them." She approaches both officers and calmly explains that she was at the auction party that day and that Kim worked under her. Ju Young asks, "Can you give us the member list of that auction party?" She refuses and says, "Next time, bring a warrant if you want to ask more questions." But Ju Young continues, pressing, "Where were you that day? What was your relationship with her?" Then, Han-seol exits nervously, trembling. Meanwhile, Suk arrives at the terrace, the very spot from which Kim jumped. In the washroom, we see Han-seol trembling as she takes tablets. Then, we see that both Pyo Song and Ju Young are preparing for what comes next. At that moment, Suk appears. Suk starts mocking the police, saying, "You only solve small cases." Pyo Song, his senior, gets angry at him. Then, both of them leave. Next, Ju Song talks to Suk and explains that Kim had been struggling with depression for a long time and was undergoing treatment. She also mentions meeting her senior officer, Han-seol, who had been very rude. Then, she sends Suk a photo of Han-seol. When Suk sees the photo, he recognizes her as the same woman he had seen in the building earlier. He immediately begins to gather information about her. Meanwhile, we see Suk at Kim's funeral. Han-seol is also there. Suk sits quietly, while Kim's co-workers are nearby. One worker cries, saying, "Miss Kim wouldn't have done this. She was supposed to get a promotion." Yoo-suk notices Han Seol leaving and decides to follow her. Outside, Han Seol is trying to start her car, but it doesn't work. Yoo-suk steps in to help. As she drives away, she watches Yoo-suk while leaving. Yoo-suk then checks records about Han Seol and finds out that she was supposed to receive money through insurance, about 700 million won. He calls the man, only to learn that he has already died. Later, we see Han Seol watching a video with a man named Yong-soo next to her fiancé. Here, Yoo-suk learns that the man died 10 days ago. Yoo-suk meets Ju-sung and explains that someone was trying to take Han Seol's position from her. He asks Ju-sung to investigate how Han Seol's fiancé died. Ju-sung later confirms that he drowned. In the next scene, Yoo-suk goes to meet Han Seol. He gives her his card and says, "I'm a life insurance investigator. I'm here to find out if it was murder or suicide." Han Seol replies, "Why are you talking like the police? I already told them everything I knew. You just told them more than necessary, thinking you were doing your job." Meanwhile, Ju-sung receives a call from someone about Miss Kim's murder, who tells her that it's a murder, not suicide. Back with Yoo-suk, he talks to Han Seol about her fiancé. He says, "He died in the river 10 days ago, and you were supposed to benefit by 700 million. Did you know he had canceled the policy before he died?" Han Seol says, "Yes, I knew." "What do you think? That I killed my fiancé for money? How are you connecting this to Miss Kim?" Yoo-suk calmly responds, "I can sniff out people and tell if they would do anything for money." Han Seol slightly smiles upon hearing this. Finally, it is revealed that Han Seol herself was the one who pushed Kim, leading to her death. Now, we see another flashback. Han Seol receives a call from a man named Do-eun, who tells her, "There's been an accident. Can you come to the scene quickly?" She rushes to the location and sees Yong-soo's body. Surprisingly, her face shows no emotion. She isn't sad, and no tears fall from her eyes. Back in the present, Yoo-suk and Han Seol are talking when Do-eun arrives. He tells Yoo-suk, "You can't just talk to her like that." Yoo-suk asks him, "If you know Song-ju, then you can give me information about him." He slips his card into Do-eun's pocket. In the next scene, Do-eun and Han Seol arrive at a bar. They reflect on past events. 2 days before, Song-ju had shared a story about Greek mythology, which inspired him to lock his hotel. Song-ju had also commented that Han Seol is strange, saying, "Sometimes I feel like I don't even know him." He also explains that the insurance policy is set up so that Han Seol will receive the benefits. Back in the present, Do-eun ignores calls from his girlfriend, who is outside trying to reach him. Meanwhile, we see Yoo-suk, who is deep in thought, trying to piece together all the clues. The next day, another auctioneer comes to Han Seol. She is shown some of Miss Kim's belongings that were left on her desk. At the same time, Yoo-suk is talking to some men involved in insurance fraud. One of his co-workers comes and reveals Miss Kim had a life insurance policy, and her family didn't know about it. Then, Yoo-suk decides to meet Kim's mother. He says, "You could have claimed the insurance money anytime." Han Seol also arrives, carrying some of Kim's belongings. Seeing these items, Kim's mother starts crying. Because the items are heavy, Yoo-suk helps carry them upstairs. The three of them enter Miss Kim's room. Inside, Kim's mother tells Han Seol, "You can take whatever office supplies you need. I'll make tea for you while you work." Han Seol and Yoo-suk start looking around the room. Yoo-suk finds a card, which he keeps in his pocket. Han Seol discovers a book that contains detailed information about her daily routine, where she goes, and what she does. Yoo-suk approaches her, but Han Seol says, "I just need to take some documents. You should go outside." Yoo-suk leaves the room, and the three of them continue their work. Yoo-suk and Han Seol sit down with Kim's mother, discussing the recent events. Yoo-suk asks Han Seol about Miss Kim, what kind of person she was. Han Seol explains, "She was very professional and hardworking. She was genuinely good." Yoo-suk comments, "Most of the time, in cases like this, colleagues bully people. But you're saying nothing like that happened to her." Han Seol doesn't give him a direct answer. Then, Han Seol asks Miss Kim's mother if she noticed anything unusual. She replies, "Yes, something did seem strange." We see a flashback. Kim is lying in bed, feeling sad. Her mother brings her food, but Kim explains that she was meeting her boyfriend and felt upset at that moment. In the end, her mother asks, "Do you really know your boyfriend?" Han Seol denies it. Her mother looks heartbroken and says, "I didn't even know about my own daughter." Then, Yoo-suk and Han Seol step outside and start arguing. Yoo-suk says, I will find out what really happened to her. Was it suicide, or was she murdered? Han Seol responds, you'll never know who the real victim was, and walks away. Yoo-suk notices a card from a restaurant and keeps it for reference. Meanwhile, Pyo-sung is seen investigating Miss Kim's call records, discovering that most of her calls were with Yang-soo. When Ju-young arrives, Pyo-sung asks, did we find any information on Yang-soo? Ju-young confirms, yes, I found it. His file is on your desk. Pyo-sung picks up the file and learns that Yang-soo was Han Seol's fiancé. Realizing this, he grabs his coat and rushes out. Elsewhere, Yoo-suk is talking to men involved in insurance fraud. One of them instructs him, bring your car and crash it into ours so we can claim the insurance money. Yoo-suk gives him his car number, 7622. In town, another man waits, thinking, I wonder when Yoo-suk will arrive. He'll probably come in a small car. Suddenly, Yoo-suk shows up driving a huge truck. Seeing this, the men panic and try to escape. Yoo-suk crashes their car into someone's, stopping them. He gets out of the truck and confronts them. I was about to crash into you, but you hit the car first. They say, were you trying to attack us? Here, Yoo-suk notices another person who is waiting for him. Then, he introduces that person. This is Detective J, the head of this police station. Just then, more police arrive and take all the criminals into custody. Afterward, Yoo-suk speaks with Detective J to gather information about Yang-soo. J explains that his fiancée had come to see him, but strangely, she showed no expression on her face. She shows Yoo-suk a video on her laptop that captures the incident, which he watches carefully. The scene shifts to a flashback where Han Seol picks up a keychain. In the past, Yang-soo and Han Seol are together on a boat, and Yang-soo reassures her, you don't need to worry. I already canceled the policy. Back in the present, Han Seol throws the keychain into the trash. Soon, she receives a call from her boss, the president, who has prepared a meal for her. Their conversation reveals that she has known this lady since childhood. She eats the fish prepared for her but later vomits it, showing her discomfort. The scene shifts again to Yoo-suk, who arrives at the same restaurant that was associated with the card he found earlier at Kim's house. This restaurant belongs to Yang-soo. Yoo-suk learns that Miss Kim used to come here often. A man explains that the day before Yang-soo died, Miss Kim came here to meet him. A flashback shows Miss Kim sitting in the restaurant while Yang-soo is there as well. In the present, Pyo-sung also arrives at the restaurant and sees Yoo-suk leaving. He then goes inside and later catches up with him on the deck. Pyo-sung explains, Miss Kim met Yang-soo and he died. 10 days later, she was also killed. Both are dead now. Yoo-suk observes him and compliments Pyo-sung, saying, I didn't know you were this smart. Pyo-sung asks, what are you doing here? This isn't your job. Yoo-suk replies, you don't see everything and that's why you always follow me. But Pyo-sung says, you think too much. Your sister also died the same way, but you're still insisting it was murder. Yoo-suk becomes angry and asks, does thinking that give you peace? Then he leaves in his car, feeling slightly sad. Then a flashback shows Yoo-suk happy with his sister. She tells him, I'm going out with my boyfriend. Don't worry about me. He waves her off, feeling joyful at that moment. But the next scene reveals that his sister has died, and he is devastated, crying over her loss. Finally, we see Yoo-suk arriving at the bar where Han Seol is sitting. The bar owner walks away. Then, Yoo-suk approaches her and says, Miss Kim came to meet your fiancé the day before your fiancé's death. Why do you think they met? Han Seol replies, how are we supposed to know? No matter how close we are, we can't tell. Yoo-suk glares at her and adds, in love affairs, people can do anything. They can kill or be killed. Or maybe he was killed for money. That's how insurance scammers operate. Once the money starts coming in, they always want more, enough to make people notice them. Han Seol asks, do you really want to know? Yoo-suk leans closer. Did you kill them? Han Seol again smiles strangely, leaving the question hanging. The scene shifts to a flashback. Han Seol enters a room and sees Miss Kim and her fiancé together. Miss Kim notices Han Seol, smiles at her, and continues. In the present, Han Seol thinks about this moment with sadness. The scene shifts back to Yoo-suk and Ju-young discussing the situation. Yoo-suk says, I don't think Han Seol knew about this. Her fiancé was having an affair with Miss Kim. Yoo-suk says, Yang-soo didn't start killing either. When the insurance payout didn't come, he made my sister a scapegoat. Ju Yong interjects, do you think Han Seol has already taken money from them before? The next day, Han Seol meets her boss in the elevator. He warns her, people are asking a lot of questions about you. They are blaming you for Miss Kim's death. The scene shifts to Do-eun, who is taking photos of paintings. His girlfriend approaches, saying, why did you ignore me that day? I'm scared of her now. You should stay away from Han Seol. Can't you see what's happening? Do-eun responds angrily. You can't talk about her like that. The next scene shows Yoo-suk with Rin. She says, if I tell the truth about my mom, will you stop her from going down the wrong path? Yoo-suk replies, if you don't tell the truth, your mom will continue on the wrong path. Rin then confesses everything. As they leave, a coworker says, how could a mother do this? Yoo-suk tells the coworker, prepare the papers for Rin so we can take care of her. Suddenly, Yoo-suk receives a call from the insurance fraud prevention team. What he hears leaves him shocked. Later, he is seen in the office reviewing documents, which include information about a doctor connected to the case. Yoo-suk discovers that a doctor named Choi Jun had committed suicide by injecting himself, and he was Han Seol's boyfriend before Yong-soo. In the next scene, we see Yoo-suk sitting with his coworkers. Yoo-suk explains, if Choi Jun had died, Han Seol would have received 50 crores. But before dying, Choi Jun canceled his insurance policy. Yoo-suk's coworker comments, that girl manipulates people, drives them crazy in love, and then kills them for money. So far, 2 of Han Seol's exes are already dead. Yoo-suk then goes to the clinic where Choi Jun worked. A doctor refuses to give him any information, but a nurse notices him. Outside, Yoo-suk waits and tells the nurse, I just need a minute to talk. She jokes that nowadays, even talking costs money. He takes her to eat, and she explains that Han Seol had been depressed. Yoo-suk asks why, and the nurse says it was because her ex-boyfriend had died. She confirms that Han Seol had previous boyfriends. One died in a terrorist attack in the Middle East, and another, Choi Jun, committed suicide. Hearing this, Yoo-suk is shocked. 3 of Han Seol's exes have died. Meanwhile, Han Seol tries to destroy some papers Miss Kim had prepared against her but cannot finish because Do-eun arrives and confronts her about whether she really loved Yong-soo, asking if she received any insurance money. Han Seol, furious, denies it and leaves. On her way, she sees a life insurance poster and smiles mysteriously. The case becomes increasingly complicated for Yoo-suk, who begins investigating the terrorist attack in Syria, where Han Seol's ex died. Later, Han Seol's co-worker brings her a painting titled Orphan from Syria. After seeing it, she steps back, frightened. As she sits, she examines a strange photograph in the painting. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk storms into the company and tells a story to Han Seol. He says, there was a girl whose ex had a life insurance policy, but he died in a terrorist attack. The girl was supposed to receive the money. That girl's life had been marked by tragedy and loss. Each of her ex-boyfriends had life insurance policies, but fate denied her any benefit. Her first boyfriend's policy had already been canceled before his death, leaving her with nothing. The second boyfriend's death led her into depression, and she met a doctor she fell in love with. He, too, took a life insurance policy in her name, but he also died, leaving her empty-handed again. Even her third boyfriend, the owner of a restaurant, drowned, but before dying, he had canceled his policy. By now, Han Seol could have received 20 crores from the first, 50 crores from the second, and 70 crores from the third boyfriend. Now, due to the cancellations, she never received a penny. Yoo-suk reflects, if anyone loves Han Seol, they are doomed. Love can make people do anything, even lose their sanity. People were so obsessed that they were willing to give everything, even their lives. Han Seol turns to Yoo-suk, standing directly in front of him, and asks, what do you see when you look at me? Who do you think will be the next one to love me? Yoo-suk is speechless, frozen by her presence, only able to stare at her. Then, smiling, she says, you're right, but my first boyfriend died in a terror attack. So did I cause that attack? The policy was canceled. I didn't find anything in any of them. So why would I kill them? But he says, maybe you're hiding something behind them because the same thing happened all 3 times. So this can't be a coincidence. She asks him, what good is this? She tells him to leave, saying, next time you come here unannounced, I'll call the police and file a complaint at your office. He replies, don't cause any trouble, but I'll keep showing up. You can't escape me. He then leaves. Next, we see that while he was running, he sees that his sister's boyfriend's shop was closed and his family had gone away. A nearby man reveals that they received money for the redevelopment work going on there and left. Meanwhile, at the company, we see that a video of Kim and Seal's conversation has been uploaded to an app. In it, Kim tells her that she has very little time, so live as long as you can, and after that, Kim died. Everyone was watching that when Seal arrives. She asks what's going on. When she sees the video, she doesn't react. She just tells them to mind their own business and leaves. Here, Yusuk was watching the same video. Noticing the timing, he tells that Kim called him just moments after that, so he thought she was going to tell him about it. But Seal must have reached her before that. But then who could have recorded this video? Meanwhile, Seal's boss, managing director Song Jae, also goes to President Kim to tell her about the video. But Seal was already there. But even then, he tells the president about the video. But Seal found some chat screenshots on Kim's computer. They were between manager Song Jae and Kim, which suggested they were having an affair. They had even lived together. Director Song Jae had promised to give her Seal's place. Seal says that now he couldn't keep his promise. This could be a valid reason for Kim's suicide. He also yells, "You're blaming me for everything." Kim then starts saying, "You're blaming each other." She then says, "If you want to hide something, you have to come up with something new to distract yourself." She then shows them a painting. It was auctioned in Hong Kong. She got word that it was here. So she says, if we sell it at a record price in the upcoming auction, all the things will be overshadowed. It will be the only thing that will be discussed. She then tells them to find it, saying, "Whoever brings it first will be first in line to become my successor." As they leave the office, Director Song Jae first drops Seal's iPad and breaks it, then threatens Seal, saying, "No one should know about their chatting. Otherwise, it won't be good." She also says, "No, I'll use it again and again as long as I want." But then we see that Seal deletes that chat. Meanwhile, President Kim goes into her secret room, which was locked. Inside, there were many paintings and among them a family painting. Seeing it, she says, "Your daughter is nothing like you. That's why I like her." Meanwhile, at the police station, Hyo-sung is watching CCTV footage from the day of Kim's death. He sees that Kim first went to the rooftop. A short time later, Seal was also go there, and Kim died shortly thereafter. This also makes him suspect Seal, but there's no concrete evidence. So they have to find the witness, and it was the same person who called Ju-young that day and told her that Kim's death wasn't a poisoning incident, but a murder. So now they have to find that person. Just then, Ju-young receives a call from Yusuk. So she goes to meet him, and now he'll help Ju-young with this. So they first go to the place where that person calls her, but there's no CCTV nearby. So they ask a nearby shop owner, but she gets angry because she thinks they're the police, hoping they've come to arrest her son. But Yusuk explains that he's come to check on something, and right in front of them was a truck that belonged to her. It had been parked there for a long time, covered in dust. So his dash cam must have recorded something. He just wanted to see it. So he takes some stuff from them and gives them money, and then they get the footage. Then Ju-young sees a girl in it, who played the recording from her phone and played it to them over the phone. Meanwhile, on the other side, Seal is searching for the owner of the painting. Then she discovers a rumor that a Korean businessman had won it over and that the vice president of Hong Kong knows about it. Just then, the bell rings. She goes outside and finds a parcel in the name of her boyfriend, Young-soo. She quickly comes downstairs, but the delivery boy has already left. She asks the guard, but his name isn't on the record. He asks for CCTV footage and says he'll only be able to tell after the manager reviews it. There, Yusuk tries to understand the mystery. He was trying to figure out what Seal might have gained from the deaths of her 3 boyfriends. What was behind all this? Here Seal drinks the same wine that had come in Young-soo's name, and she started remembering him. The next day, she learned from CCTV footage from the management office that the delivery boy was from the courier company Dalio Quick. She asked her colleague, Song-mi, which courier service they used. She told her the name was Dalio Quick. Seal asked for his number. Then she learned that Do-eun had sent it. She went straight to him, angry that he had sent the wine. She wouldn't let him speak. She said, "Did you want to make me feel guilty? Or do you want to prove that I killed Young-soo?" But he said, "Sorry." He says, "Young-soo told me to do this, but I should have told you." Just then, Do-eun's sister, Eun-hai, arrives. Seal starts to leave, saying, "We'll talk about this some other time." But she stops her, saying, "Let's have dinner together today and drink wine. You liked that gift, didn't you?" Seal realizes she sent it. She also says, "You must be shocked, but Dune couldn't give it to me, so I gave it to you. If you have any problems, go and ask your dead fiancé. But she doesn't say anything. She just thanks him and leaves. We're then shown in flashback that Yong-soo had asked Do-eun to give the wine to Seol. He had said, if anything happens to me, give it to her. Perhaps he finds out that Seol's old boyfriend is dead. Then at present, when Seol goes to the company, she finds Yoo-suk there. He's moved to General Insurance after talking to his boss. Now, he's become their new fine art insurance account manager. So, he'll be coming back here frequently. Then he meets Seol. She says, "It was nice meeting you." Then she takes him to the auction house. He tells her, "Don't even think about hiring a new account manager other than me." She also says, "As long as you work well, I won't have any problems." Then she takes him around the place, telling him who can go where, who can't, and how much security there is. But he says, "You must know everything, right? Where there's CCTV, where there isn't. And you must know how to get to the rooftop without anyone noticing." She just stares at him briefly, but says nothing. She then begins to show him the rest of the area and then takes him to her art storage room. If anything gets broken or stolen, he'll have to pay for it. But he says, "I also saw your video. What did Kim want to tell me before she died?" She says, "Maybe the secret behind my boyfriend's death. You're sure I killed him, but there's no proof. That's why you came here with this excuse." He also says, "You're very smart. So tell me, who's that next man?" She smiles and starts to walk away, but he blocks her way. She moves very close to him, as if kissing him. Then she tells him that everyone is watching from the monitoring room. So if you don't want any misunderstandings, move away. He notices the camera in front of him, so he moves away. Then, coming out, Seol warns him not to come in without permission in the future. Otherwise, instead of replacing him, they'll change their insurance company. As they leave, Yoo-suk's talking to Dong, his co-worker. He's looking for Kim's car because her insurance was still valid, but it wasn't with the cars outside. But when Yoo-suk remembers it again, he goes to the parking lot. He finds the car there and unlocks it. Inside, he finds a Wen Palace card. Then, we see Seol came to Hwang's bar. Seol told her about the wine. She says maybe he wanted to surprise you. But Do-eun's sister was overreacting. She should be thanking you. You've done so much for them. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk meets Dong for dinner and asks him to find out about Wen Palace. The next day, Seol meets with Hong Kong's president's wife, who used to live there, to find out about the painting's owner. She shows her some of her paintings, as she also ran an art gallery. She then explains that she's the daughter of the N Group family, so you have to put her paintings in your auction. You have to sell them. She means the painting was her own, and she wanted to sell at high price, so Seol would have to do a favor for her. She then tells Seol about the artist, saying rumors say he's the CEO of a successful startup company and that he mentioned James Peake during the bidding. Seol searches for him. The company was your home, and the CEO's name was Jun Byum. Then she realizes it was Jun Byum she met on the day of the auction. So she calls him and arranges a meeting. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk observes a boy with a leg injury arrives at the company, asking for insurance money. But Yoo-suk recognizes him because he's faked such an injury before. He tries to hit him, but runs away. Meanwhile, Jun Byum goes to Royal Auction, where Seol is waiting for him. She shows him her paintings. She tells him about them, and then shows him the painting of the child, which Jun Byum had actually sent her. She was going to auction it. She wanted him to see it one last time, as the painting was special to him. He tells Seol, "I used to go to Hong Kong every vacation. I saw this painting in an art gallery. I looked at it for an hour, and I have more like it. Would you like to see them?" She says, "Yes, of course." Then they go to a restaurant. Over dinner, Jun Byum starts telling her a story about a girl who shook the entire nation. But poor Seol, that girl had no place to hide. Then she tells him about the painting. "I heard about it and you bought it. So you gave me this. I want to put it back in the main lot in my next auction." He gets a little upset, thinking that means you're interested in it, not me. But she doesn't talk about it. Regarding the painting, she says that many people here want it, so you'll only get 30% more than its price. He says, "It's a good offer, but I've kept it very carefully." So she asks, "Then what else do you want?" He says, "There's more than just money, and you must have understood that." But she sniffs. "I'll give you more time to think. It must be very valuable to you, right? Then think carefully before you tell me." Meanwhile, they were checking the same girl on CCTV. but she was going from different places. Perhaps she was trying to elude them. But then they spot her at a security checkpoint where she typed in her card. This means they'll find out who she is. Meanwhile, Dom tried to find out about Wen Palace, but there were so many such palaces. He thought there might be a secret place. So, to find out, Yusuk went to meet someone who used to do insurance for him a long time ago. Yusuk had sent him to jail for this, and he was still in jail. So, before Yusuk's arrival, he hid some documents and recently made another false claim, saying he had injured his leg, but he was completely fine. So Yusuk made a deal with him, saying he would do his work for him because he used to run a courier service. So he sent all his men to find that Wen Palace. After that, Yusuk finds its address. Here the police arrested that girl, and she was actually Eun-hye, Do-eun's younger sister. Do-eun's sister, an intern at the royal auction. She then tells Pyo-sung that she saw Seol kill Kim. Here Yusuk goes to the palace. The card unlocks the gate. He then checks every room. Here he sees a mini house. On the other side, Seol was bathing at home. Yusuk goes to the balcony and sees a girl from the building opposite, who is actually Seol. He is shocked by this. Then he hides there. After that, he checks that mini house and finds a phone inside it. Here at the police station, Eun-hye finally reveals the truth about the night of the incident. She says that Seol is the one who killed Kim. She explains that she saw everything with her own eyes. On the night of the charity auction event, she went to the archive room after the event to organize some catalogs. She waited for the elevator for a long time, but it never came. So, she decided to take the stairs instead. While walking down the stairway, she suddenly saw Seol running down from the rooftop. Seol looked extremely nervous, like someone trying to escape from something. At that moment, I felt that something was strange, but I did not understand what happened until she walked outside the building. Outside, people were already panicking. Someone had just fallen from the rooftop and died. That person was Miss Kim. From that moment, Eun-hye became certain that Seol was involved in Kim's death. However, she kept her identity hidden when she first reported the information. When Pyo-sung asks her why she did that, she explains that she was afraid. Seol is a powerful and manipulative woman. If Seol discovered who reported her, Seol would try to destroy her life. She was also worried about her brother Do-eun. He used to work as an underwater photographer, but now he only takes photos for events at the auction house. She feared that if Seol found out the truth, her brother might become another victim. According to her, Seol is the type of person who manipulates everyone around her. Then Pyo-sung asks about the video and asks if she knows who recorded it. Eun-hye says she has seen the video before, but she does not know who recorded it. Pyo-sung then reminds her that she was part of the auction team staff on the night of the event, but she explains that she spent the entire time setting up for the auction, so she could not have recorded it. She even offers to let them check her phone if they want proof. After reviewing her statement and checking security cameras, the investigators notice something important. The witness's story matches the CCTV footage. The cameras clearly show that Seol followed Kim up to the rooftop. Because of this evidence, the police finally begin treating Seol as a murder suspect. At the same time, a large charity auction event is taking place. Many rich collectors and powerful businessmen are attending. Before the auction begins, Yusuk approaches Seol and asks to talk to her. He says the conversation will only take 5 minutes, but Seol coldly refuses. She says she has no time for that because the event is about to start. Then she walks away without another word. The auction finally starts. The auctioneer introduces the first artwork. It is a painting called The Abyss by Kim Sungmin. Soon another painting is introduced. This one is called Vanished Sensation by Fabien Leclerc, a rising European artist who has recently gained attention among collectors. Bidding for this piece becomes extremely intense. Meanwhile, a flashback shows President Kim privately speaking with a powerful businessman named Chairman Park Min-cheol, the leader of Taemyeong Group. She shows him several artworks that she believes will become extremely valuable in the future. She confidently tells him that these artists will become famous soon. If he buys their works now, their value could increase 10 times in the next few years. Chairman Park listens carefully. He asks if she is telling him that he should win the auction at any cost. She smiles confidently. Chairman Park seems convinced. Now at present, finally, the painting is sold for billions of won. The winner is Chairman Park Min-cheol himself. The auctioneer proudly announces that part of the money will go to support young artists. Everything appears successful, but suddenly, the situation changes. Just after the auction ends, several police officers walk directly towards Seol. At that moment, the police officially place her under arrest. She is accused of being a suspect in the murder of Kim. The entire crowd watches in shock as the powerful Seol is escorted away by the police. Yoo-suk is also watching her leave. After that, he calls a hacker named Chon, who is examining a mysterious burner phone connected to the case. He manages to unlock it. Inside the phone, he discovers something shocking. Someone installed a spy application on the device. This app secretly records phone calls and even the sounds around the phone. Even though the phone is locked by fingerprint security, Chon manages to access some saved files. He finds a list of audio recordings. These recordings might contain important evidence about the case. Here, the interrogation begins. Hyo-sung reminds her that she lied during the previous witness interview. From this moment forward, she must think carefully before answering any questions. Then, the questioning begins again. The detective asks her one simple question. Where were you at the time of the incident? Previously, Seol said she was in the auction team office when Kim died. The detective asks if her answer is still the same. For a moment, Seol hesitates. The investigators notice this and start laying out the timeline. At a certain time that night, Kim got off the elevator on the 10th floor and went up to the rooftop to smoke. A short time later, Seol also got off on the 10th floor. About 20 minutes later, Kim fell from the rooftop and died. The police even have a witness who claims they saw Seol running away from the rooftop. The detective leans forward and tells her to just confess. Then she admits something important. She says the detectives are right. That night, she did go to the rooftop to find Kim. However, she claims that when she arrived there, Kim had already taken her own life. Seol explains that she did not tell the police this before because she was afraid it might cause a misunderstanding. Seeing Kim's body terrified her, so she panicked and ran away. Now Seol seems confident because there is no direct evidence proving she pushed Kim. But the police still have several pieces of circumstantial evidence. There is an autopsy report that suggests the possibility of murder, along with CCTV footage and a witness statement. With that much evidence, even a judge could consider the case suspicious. Later, inside the visitation room at the police station, Do-eun comes to see Seol. He promises that he will do everything he can to help her. Seol remains silent, but Do-eun reassures her. He trusts her completely. Then we see that she whispers something to him. After that, Do-eun reaches the company and starts looking for something. Just then, Yoo-suk arrives and asks, "Are you looking for this memory card?" Do-eun is shocked, asking, "How do you know about it?" Then, through a flashback, we come to know that Yoo-suk gets the lisping of what Seol whispers to him, and that is, check the monitor in the exhibition room. This suggests that important evidence might exist on a monitor connected to an art installation. Now Yoo-suk begins to suspect that someone may have tampered with evidence after the incident. Do-eun also makes his position clear. He says he did not come to protect Seol simply because she is his friend. He came because he trusts her. But trust alone is not enough. If they want to uncover the truth, they must find out who Seol really is. Then, at the station, we see that the case seems to be closing in on Seol. Something surprising happens. A new piece of evidence appears. Yoo-suk submits video footage from a media art installation at the exhibition. The footage clearly shows her appearing inside the artwork display. More importantly, the metadata timestamp on the video shows the exact time. The timestamp matches the moment when Kim fell from the rooftop. If the timestamp is accurate, Seol could not have been on the rooftop at that time. This could become a perfect alibi. After reviewing the new evidence, the higher authorities step in. They tell the detectives to close the Kim case. Eventually, Seol is released. Outside the station, she meets Yoo-suk, who helped her. She thanks him for helping her. Then she leaves. The next day, Seol comes to work at the royal auction, and Eun-hye sees her. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk is given another case. But Yoo-suk is still thinking about Seol and quickly leaves. Meanwhile, President Kim says, "We were about to send a legal team to you, but you came before that. By the way, the auction went very well." Meanwhile, Yoo-suk comes to meet the hacker named Chon, who is playing football. Yoo-suk asks where the audio files are. Chon says, but all these audio files are related to Miss Han Seol. Then he sends all the files to Yoo-suk. Then Yoo-suk tells him, "You have another job to do. You have to find and trace Han-soo." Han-soo none other than the suspect in the murder case of his sister, who was his ex. Then we see Suk listens to the entire recording, but he does not find anything concrete, and from here, he looks to Seol's apartment. He looks there, and just like that, Kim was keeping watch from the same apartment. Only then he notices something in the mini house. There are two persons in front of it, and one is Kim's own because she used to do TV. But suddenly she switched to royal auctions there. But the other guy is a doctor because he's wearing a coat and a surgical mask, and it suddenly dawns on Suk that Seol's second victim was a psychiatrist, and he was also a doctor. Meanwhile, Seol suffers from insomnia and can't sleep, so she comes to the doctor, and the doctor says, "I'm your family doctor, so I'm prescribing these pills for the last time, but you have to stay away from these pills. They don't work on you yet. You should go to therapy." But Seol says, "No. My experience wasn't good." And then you see that when Seol goes to Dr. Choi, the second victim, who is a doctor, he had misbehaved with her and touched her inappropriately. Then Suk comes to meet the same nurse, and he asks the nurse if the doctor was Seol's partner at the time, and he shows her a photo, and the nurse says yes, and also tells him that he was dating a TV reporter before that, and I don't think Seol knew about that. Months later, she had even broken up with that TV reporter. And she was also strange. She would bring food, but being a doctor, Chai had refused. But Kim says, "If you don't eat with me, I'll kill myself." The doctor tries to stop her, but he gets a chopstick on his cheek, and he bleeds. The nurse sees it. Now at present, the nurse tells him that her monthly period is after that. She becomes his patient in a way. The psychiatrist won't have any relationship with her, so he sends her to a countertransference center. Here, Seol meets the same man who took the paintings, and he thanks Seol and gives the chairwoman a ticket to Busan, saying, "We'll auction off the 5 paintings there, the 5 for which the chairwoman had given her a quotation." Then Seol comes and gives it to the chairwoman. In the next scene, Seol is looking at the paintings. Suddenly, Suk comes in and says, "I have something to tell you. You know, Kim was stalking you, and do you know why? Not because of Yong-soo, but because of Dr. Chai. That was her ex." Suk says she must be wondering what her future will be if she dates the doctor, but you took everything from her, and she became obsessed with it. So she followed you to the royal auction and went from being a TV anchor to an intern. Seol says so she ended up her because of it. Suk says he doesn't know. Someone else might have killed her. But what did you gain from her death and your 3 exes? Then Seol says, "I have not gained anything till date. I have lost everything till date. That's why I also ask myself the same question and start getting confused here." Then suddenly, she becomes unconscious, and Suk takes her to the hospital. Here, the doctor tells Suk that she should not take the medicine for insomnia. After that, Suk comes back and checks that Seol is not here. Here we see that Seol has come to meet Yun-byum, the CEO of your home, and here she is looking at a painting of a fire. Here we find out that Seol's mom and dad died in a fire accident, and Seol was the only survivor of that accident. Then she meets Yun-byum, and Yun-byum says, "Your offer is good, and I will also get a profit. I'm not just attracted to numbers, but I'm also attracted to people." Then Seol says, "I don't do my business like that," and starts walking away. Yun-byum says, "Wait," and holds her hand. Seol says, "I thought you were the owner of a unicorn company, so you must have different feelings, and I don't like it at all when business and personal matters are involved." Then Yun-byum says, "Okay, I'll deal with you." On the other side, Suk is listening to the audio recording. While Seol's talking to the bar owner says, "You can interrupt me. It's okay. You didn't cry even to your parents." Here she says it was my fault. All this happens with me. And the bar owner warns her that if she continues living like this, one day she will completely collapse. But Seol quietly responds with heartbreaking words. She says she does not have the right to fall apart, because when the accident happened years ago, she survived instead of her parents. The guilt of surviving has stayed with her ever since. Meanwhile, Do-eun is taking a unique photograph. Just then, Suk comes and says, "Tell me everything about Seol. What happened in her childhood? Tell me." Then Do-eun reveals the truth. When they were 10 years old, Seol lost her parents in a tragic accident. A fire broke out in their home. Seol was the only survivor. I can't tell you anything more than this, that her life is very difficult. Here, Eun-hae comes and warns Suk to stay away from Seol. She believes Seol will only bring trouble into his life. After that, Suk researches about Seol and tells Detective Yoo Jong everything. Suk says, "I think she has bad luck. just like my sister, and people misunderstand her. Her bed is going on somewhere, and she's following up tragedy after tragedy. I feel like it's just her bad luck, and I'm pushing her through hell. Meanwhile, Seal comes home, getting ready to go somewhere, and talking to the bar owner. The owner says, "You don't need to go there." Seal says, "I have to go. I have to pay respect." Then she puts the medicine in the dustbin. Then we find out that there's a memorial for Seal's ex-husband, Yong-soo, and she's at the ceremony. Yong-soo's mom and his brother are there, and his mom scolds her, and Yoo-suk's watching this. And then the mom says, "He went against all of us and married you. If he hadn't met you, he would be alive today." Then Yong-ju's brother says, "I need to talk to you." He tells her it's an insurance policy. "My brother bought it, but just before he died, he canceled it." "What's that for?" That insurance guy also calls again and again. And that day that woman also came and was telling that Yong-ju has also taken an insurance policy. And here we are shown that this woman is none other than Kim. Meanwhile, Yong-soo's brother is saying, "You did this for the insurance, right? You were the beneficiary, and when my brother got suspicious, he withdrew the name and you killed him. If you don't answer, I'll ask that woman." Then Seal says, "She's no longer alive." Then Yong-soo's brother says, "So that means you killed her, right?" He's forcing her hard, hitting her on the shoulder several times. It happens. Then suddenly, Yoo-suk comes in and he asks, "Who are you?" Yoo-suk says, "I'm the same insurance agent who called you." Then everyone is showing respect. Here, Do-eun sees that Seal is not behind. Here Seal stands alone and takes off her ex-husband's ring and throws it away, saying how happy she was on the boat that day when he proposed. Then Yoo-suk comes from behind and asks, "What's the point of all this? Everyone's in trouble, even your parents." Seal looks back and he says, "Did you lose everything?" She says, "Do you still think I killed someone?" She says, "Yes. Who will believe me?" And then she starts crying, tears streaming down her face, and she holds back, about to jump. Suddenly, Yoo-suk grabs her hand and says, "Are you crazy?" He hugs her and makes her sit down. Meanwhile, she says, "If I disappear, this will all be over. I don't care. I want to die. Why are you stopping me? What else do you want to know?" Yoo-suk says, "I want to know everything about you." Next, we see that Seal is leaving in a taxi, followed by Yoo-suk. Then, she arrives home, remembering how Yoo-suk saved her from the mountain. Then, Yoo-suk calls photographer Do-eun, but he says, "I won't tell you, I don't want to talk to you," and hangs up. Meanwhile, the managing director of Royal Auction approaches Jun Byum and gives him a proposal for Stiller's painting. But Jun Byum says, "Sorry, I accidentally double-booked. I had an appointment with someone else, and this is none other than Han Seal." The managing director finds out that Jun Byum has made a deal with Seal, and he's furious. Jun Byum tells Seal that, "I want to offer you more than just an advisory role. Will you be the CEO of our company's second branch, which is art-related?" But Seal says, "Thank you for the offer, but I have some work to do with Royal Auction. First, I have to do that." Jun Byum says, "I'll give you shares and double your salary." But Seal refuses, saying there's something more important to me than money. Then, Jun Byum asks, "What's your motive?" Then Seal smiles. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk arrives at the neighborhood and inquires about Han Seal and her parents who died in the fire. Photographer Do-eun also arrives and says, "Please don't investigate this. She's already in a lot of trouble. Please treat her wounds and leave her alone." Yoo-suk replies, "I don't want to bother her either, but it's more important for me to know the truth." Photographer Do-eun brings him to the warehouse, where all his swimming equipment is lying, and here he tells him, "When I was a kid, I saw Seal's mom and dad struggling a lot, and her dad was a very good painter. But they never made it big, and they had loans, so loan sharks would come to their house, and I saw how distressed they were. One day, a loan shark heated a clothes iron and put it to Seal's shoulder. But she didn't cry or scream at all, and she endured everything. A few days later, there was a fire, and Seal was the only survivor." Yoo-suk says, "Oh, so you help her. Is this friendship or love?" Photographer Do-eun says, "You won't understand. It's more than just those two." On the other side, Seal informs the president of the Royal Auction that they've booked Stiller's painting, and this time, the bidding will be the highest. President Kim is overjoyed. Then, Yoo-suk approaches the bar owner and says, "I'll get you a drink." They both begin drinking, and the bar owner says, "I'm glad you found out everything about her parents." She actually never says anything. She keeps everything hidden. I've known her since school. We even took the college entrance exam together, but I couldn't go to college. We're not ordinary friends. We're more than that. But she's still open with herself. She's been hurt a lot in the world, and now even her tears have dried up. So people misunderstand her because of her cold behavior. And I don't think she could ever commit insurance fraud. Money doesn't matter that much to her. Her parents died. Her first love died. She's also in a mental clinic. Yu Suk asks, "Can you tell me?" She's been on medication ever since. She says she just pretends to be strong. It's her bad luck. Then Yu Suk asks, "By the way, why did you open a bar right in front of the royal auction?" The bar owner gets nervous and then says, "So that I can make connections with big people or decent men and get married and settle down. I guess why I'm telling you." And saying this, she leaves. Meanwhile, Yusuk goes to Kim's apartment and is thinking about Han Seol. He is sitting there and is listening to an old recording of when photographer Doon comes to meet Seol. He asks why she is working late at night. She replies, "Her fiancé has just passed away." She says, "Now I can't go home. So what can I do? I'm just working." She's looking at the artist's work and says, "I still have nightmares when I saw the body of Yang Su over there at the dockyard." Then Do-eun says, "What can I do for you?" Seol says, "Nothing. You being with me is enough." Here Suk is looking at Seol. Seol comes out and notices him. She goes back into the room and removes her gown. Suk wonders what he's doing there. Here Seol is secretly watching him and smiling. The next morning, a lot of art pieces are being put together. Photographer Do-eun's sister, Eun-hae, accidentally drops an art piece. They all come running and are very angry at Eun-hae. But Seol doesn't get too angry. She says, "Be careful," and tells the others to file an insurance claim. "I'll talk to the artist quickly." Eun-hae comes aside. "I want to talk to you." Then Seol asks if she did this intentionally. Eun-hae says, "So, how does it feel when you can't prove that someone did something the way you killed Yang Su and Kim?" Han Seol says, "How could you do that? Keep personal matters aside. For an artist, their art piece is like a child. You've studied it, so at least show some respect." With this, Seol walks away and Eun-hae says, "I'm not afraid. If you want to remove me, remove it." Meanwhile, Han Seol is talking to the artist, while Yusuk is taking photographs to file an insurance claim. The artist hangs up, and Seol, quite sad, starts to leave. Yusuk follows her, asking, "I want to talk to you right now." But she says, "I'm going to the artist." Yusuk says, "I'll come with you. I'll drive. We can talk then." They both get into the car and continue talking. Here, the manager-director pulls Eun-hae aside, saying, "You've got the auction cancelled. I did say you create problems, but I didn't say you break any art piece." Eun-hae says, "I did as you said. Now, can I stay in the full-time job from the entrance or not? And if I get fired from the job, I will throw everything out." And here Yusuk and Seol are talking. Yusuk asks whether Eun-hae broke it intentionally. Then Seol says that you always look at everything with a suspicious eye, right? You suspect everything. He says, "Yes, this is my nature." Then Seol says, "Still don't cross the line." "What do you mean?" "I know you see me through when places." And here we are shown that Eun-hae had noticed this when Yusuk is leaving the building and sees his face. Here he asks, "You knew about that apartment." Then they come across the artist. Then Seol goes to kneel and apologizes. But the artist gets very angry and says, "Cancel the auction." She says, "Please, you can recreate that piece. The auction is in 2 days." But the artist says, "It will be very difficult to get the same color again." Han Seol says, "Still, please try." Then, as the artist lights the lamp, Seol remembers all her trauma again. Yusuk notices this and goes to get the color. Yusuk helps her by saying, "I'll put the color in a glass and take it from the rack above." Then he says, "You didn't need to go to your kneel." Then Han Seol says, "For an artist, their art piece is everything. And I just wanted to show him that I dare him, and even then, the insurance claim would be made." Money doesn't matter that much to an artist. He's put in a lot of effort. Then Yusuk is helping the artist. Seol says, "I'm going to get coffee." And the artist finishes the finished piece. When Seol brings the coffee, she gets scared when she sees the fire again and comes out and sits down. Then Yusuk comes to see her and asks, "Are you okay now?" He says, "I can't figure it out. At one point, you wanted to leave this world, and now you're not giving up and you're working so hard. You look so strong at one moment and the next moment, so weak." Then she smiles. "That's life. Do you feel sorry for me?" Yusuk says, "At first, I thought you were doing everything for money. But now I feel like someone wants the man you were linked to die, and you're just the victim. Han Seol says, I think so too, because you said it couldn't be a third time. Then Yoo Suk says, I want to help you. Han Seol asks, do you actually believe me? Yoo Suk says, yes. I'd like to take this chance. Then Seol becomes very emotional, tears welling up in her eyes. On the other side, Detective Ju Young arrives at Yoo Suk's house and sees a burner phone on the board. She finds the phone, which belongs to Kim, which contains all of Seol's recordings. She starts listening to it. Then Yoo Suk arrives at his house and Detective Ju Young asks, where did you go? He says, I went out of town. That's why my phone wasn't reachable. Ju Young replies, you feel bad for her, don't you? She shows the phone recording and says, you feel sympathy for her and you want to believe she's not a criminal, and now you've become obsessed. That's why you haven't given this evidence to the police. The two have a brief argument and Ju Young leaves. Then Yoo Suk is thinking, whoever loves you dies. That means her new lover will die too. Here, the police are watching CCTV footage and notice a man recording the scene angled toward the ceiling when Kim fell. They say, now we'll find him. The next day, back to the exhibition, the new piece is placed and Yoo Suk and Seol are talking. Yoo Suk says, he knows you well, he's targeting the men around you, and every crime has a motive, a goal. Seol says, that means the killer's goal is to make me unhappy. Yoo Suk says, one thing's for sure, whoever your new man is will be killed. So, I want to be that man. Then she says, okay, I'm curious too, and I want to see the killer's face when you find out the truth. Now Yoo Suk is surprised that she accepted it so quickly. After that, Seol arrives at Jun Byum's house, and Jun Byum is overjoyed to see her. Just then, Yoo Suk arrives, saying, I'm an insurance agent. He says, he's come to pick up Stiller's paintings. Seol says, now your house will look a little empty today, so let's show you the new paintings. Jun Byum says, let's have a drink. The three of them are sitting and drinking, and Jun Byum says, why you bring an insurance agent too? She says, because there are some protocols. Yoon Byum then talks confidently about art and life. He says that money can reveal a person's true nature and that insurance often turns both art and human life into numbers. His words sound philosophical but also a bit suspicious. Yoo Suk begins to feel that something is not right about him. Yoon Byum smiles and says, people change when money gets involved. Then he says, I'm not that calculative. I just think with my heart and follow my heart. While he's looking at Seol, Yoo Suk notices that the wine bottle has the same siren symbol on it, and it's the same bottle. He found it at Yang Su's place. Then, he calls the hacker Chan and asks him to find out everything about Jun Byum. Meanwhile, Jun Byum is talking to Seol and says, I'm feeling quite empty. But I'm also relieved that through this piece, I got what I wanted. I have gained access to you. My feelings for you are genuine. You don't need to answer right now. I just wanted to tell you. Then, suddenly, Yoo Suk comes in saying, it's getting late. Then, both Seol and Yoo Suk come out. Han Seol says, this is a very substantial business deal. Don't mess this up. Then, Yoo Suk acts up because he sees Jun Byum and says, I won't wait in line for you. Then, he grabs her by the waist and pulls her closer and says, you don't doubt him. Then Jun Byum says, if we have to do this, let's do it properly. Then, she kisses Yoo Suk directly, and Yoo Suk is shocked. Here, Jun Byum also sees them, and Seol and Yoo Suk also look at him from the side. Then, Seol walks away, thinking, I made the first move. Now, let's see how he reacts. Both of them are thinking about that kiss, while Jun Byum is drinking wine with tears in his eyes. Here, the president is overjoyed and compliments Han Seol, while the managing director is furious. Then, Yoo Suk arrives to get Han Seol's parents' insurance claim files, but they're too old to access. Meanwhile, the female detective, Ju Young, enters the Lun Palace and listens to the recording. Here, Yoo Suk gains access to the files and quickly goes to meet Han Seol. Here, the police are watching the recording. It's then revealed that someone was on the rooftop when Kim fell. Here, Yoo Suk approaches Han Seol and she asks, did you find anything else? Now, what did you discover? Yoo Suk says that your mom and dad took out a policy a month before the fire, and if anything happens to them, you'll get all the money. So, to protect yourself from the loan sharks, you gave that money to the loan sharks after the fire. Tell me, you knew that the life insurance policies are in your mom and dad's name, and you're the only survivor. If you know the truth, tell me who started the fire. For a moment, everything goes silent. Then, Seal finally speaks. She admits it. She says that she was the one who started the fire and that she killed them. This shocking confession leaves everyone stunned. But even after saying this, her expression remains calm, almost empty. The two look at each other, and Seal has tears in her eyes. The atmosphere becomes heavy. Then, Seal starts to leave, and Yusuk stops her and asks her to explain. She claims that she killed her parents to collect the insurance money. She says she had men take out insurance policies, but her plan didn't go as expected, so she ended up killing them all. Yusuk cannot believe it and asks again if she really did it. But Seal responds in a strange way. She says, "That's what you wanted to hear, right?" It becomes unclear whether she is telling the truth or just saying what he expects. She insists that she has always told the truth, but people simply refuse to believe her. Saying this, she leaves. Then, in a flashback, the managing director is seen talking to the president of Royal Auction, asking, "Why don't you remove Han Seal?" She says, "We need her." Then, he whispers something in her ear. On the other side, Yusuk is talking to a senior, and he says, "Now you've got new evidence. What do you want?" Yusuk says, "I don't think she killed them." Senior asks, "Do you really believe that?" Here, Han Seol is sitting with Do-eun inside a bar, and she asks, "Why didn't you ever abandon me? Even in school, you always helped me, and that gave me courage, and I always went to school." Photographer Do-eun explains that it all started the day when my father started creating a ruckus at house, abusing me and my sister. He chased us down the street and was about to beat us. But then you saved us and took us to your house where your mom treated my sister high and you treated me, and for the first time, I realized that someone was on my side. Someone was with me, and that eased my pain. We can't choose our parents. So, it's neither your fault nor my fault that we were born in that house. Just then, the bar owner arrives and tells them not to drink too much on an empty stomach. Meanwhile, Detective Pyo-sung says that Miss Kim's investigation has been reopened for one day, and if we don't find evidence, I'll have to resign. We need the VIP list from the auction on the day Kim died. Here, Han Seol is giving an interview and talking about the painting of a siren. The interviewer deliberately asks her an uncomfortable question, saying, "You've had a lot of bad things happen to you and to your friends who have been in the past." But Seol handles the interview well, smiling. Then, we find out that the interviewee was in cahoots with the managing director. The interviewee says, "These are all things from the past. If we find something new, then we can talk about the present." He says, "Okay, give me some time." Then, managing director arrives at the police station. Here, Yusuk comes to Han Seol and asks, "Tell me what actually happened that day with your family." Han Seol replies, "Only I know the truth. You won't find out anything." Yusuk replies, "I want to believe you. That insurance company no longer exists." But Seol leaves without saying anything. Just then, something strange happens. She receives a message, a photo of her with Young-soo, her ex, and a photo of her with Yusuk. She's told to come to this location, and a QR code is sent. Seeing all this, she is quite nervous, heads for Felix storage, and Yusuk spots her and follows her. Meanwhile, Seol goes inside Felix storage, and Yusuk also follows her, saying that he knows her. Meanwhile, she is coming near storage B, and here we see Junbium, who is looking for storage space for his artwork and wine. And the manager of Felix storage is telling him that there are CCTV cameras here too. You can see them. Then Junbium notices Seol there. Here, Han Seol finds a photo of her and her ex-boyfriend on the yacht. Just then, Yusuk enters the storage room and sees a man inside with a cap, but he runs away. He notices that something is about to fall on Seol, and he quickly saves her, but it hits her hand. Just then, Junbium also arrives. After that, Junbium's secretary, a nurse, treats Seol. Here, Yusuk tries to find out who rented that specific unit, but the staff refuses to give any information due to strict privacy rules. Junbium comes and says, "You have to tell me, or I'm not signing a contract with this company." Just then, Seol arrives and Junbium says, "I'll drive you there." Yusuk says, "It's okay, I'll take her." They come out, and Yusuk asks, "Why did you come here?" But she asks, "Were you following me?" Yusuk says, "We were deliberately trapped here. I want to help you. Why don't you understand?" Seol asks, "So now you don't see me as a suspect anymore?" Yusuk says, "I'm worried about you." I know you didn't kill your parents, and I want to know the reasons. Meanwhile, we see the managing director giving the police a complete list of VIPs, including who was there that day. He also tells them about Jun Byum and photographer Do-eun. The managing director says that photographer treats Seal like a queen and treats her accordingly. I didn't know when I hired him that he would be so close to her. Then, Detective Ju Young reveals something shocking. Do-eun was present at multiple important moments. He was in Cheonggun on the day Young-soo died. He was also there when Kim died. And on top of that, he is the one who confirmed Seol's alibi. This makes everything suspicious. The investigators begin to consider a new theory. What if Han Seo and Do-eun are working together? If that is true, then Seol's alibi could be completely false. Hyo Song listens carefully. He knows this theory is possible, but he still doesn't fully believe Seol is guilty. Still, he decides they need more evidence before confronting Do-eun. So, they decide to revisit Yoon Sung-ji's death to find a new lead. Here, Yoo-suk is talking to Han Seol, and she tells him that she received a message like that, and Yoo-suk says that person wanted to bring you there. Things could have gotten worse. Someone is keeping an eye on you. It could have been Jun Byum, but he was nervous there, and I saw another guy inside with a cap, which means he's still keeping an eye on herself. Then, Yoo-suk tells her clearly that she shouldn't try to handle things alone anymore. Then Seol says, let's go to my house together. And we see that the same man wearing cap is taking photographs. Here, Yoo-suk notices that the same wine bottles is also present at Seol's house. And here, Seol reveals that her fiancé Young-soo used to make this wine. Yoo-suk says that I saw this at Jun Byum's house too. Then we see someone with all the photographs of Seol and Yoo-suk on his phone. Here, both of them are talking. Seol asks, now you're not afraid of me? Now you don't think I'm lying to you? Yoo-suk says, no. He says something very meaningful. When she said she started the fire, it didn't sound like a confession. It sounded like she was asking someone to find the truth. Then, for the first time, Seol begins to open up honestly. Then, we see her past in detail. Her family was extremely poor. Her father was drowning in debt to loan sharks, and there was no way out. Their situation kept getting worse and worse. One day, her mother told her to go watch a movie, but something felt strange. Instead of going to the theater, Seol bought fried chicken and went back home. And when she returned, she saw something horrifying. Her parents had already taken pesticide. They had also spread gasoline around the house. They were planning to die and make it look like an accident. Seol realizes that her parents were trying to escape their debt through life insurance money. Her father planned it, and her mother chose to die with him. In that moment, Seol was supposed to die with them too, but she survived. She was left alone. She says that from that day, she felt like she was living in hell. Now, as an adult, she calls herself a terrible daughter because she is alive while her parents are gone. Yoo-suk listens quietly. Then, he gently tells her something important. In that moment, she was just a child. The world was too cruel, and none of it was her fault. He tells her it's okay to cry. And finally, Seol lets her emotions out. This is the first time we truly understand her pain. Then, we go back to the police station. The team continues investigating Kim's death. Then, they find something suspicious. The yacht involved in the incident was repaired just one day before the accident. At first, the repair company said there was nothing wrong, but now the investigators are starting to doubt that. So, they decide to go and inspect it again. Here, Seol asks for all the storage details and learns that their company also stores some paintings there, and this is done by none other than the President Kim. Then, she visits President Kim, who is making kimchi, and notices her while she's placing an order. A bowl of kimchi is also delivered to the photographer Do-eun's sister, Eun-hae. Meanwhile, the police arrive at the yard's repair shop and learn that the photographer, Do-eun, had the keys and that the repairs were done that day because the turbine engine wasn't working properly. Meanwhile, photographer Do-eun argues with his younger sister Eun-hae about whether Seol's using him or not, but you won't understand. Here, Han Seol is telling the others that she'll be appointing a new associate auctioneer to replace Kim. Just then, Yoo-suk arrives and says, let's go have lunch. Inside the office, everyone is noticing, which is their intention. Then, we see Yoo-suk and Seol eating and talking outside. They're pretending because the office people see them there too. She says that by tomorrow, rumors of their dating will be spreading everywhere. Then, we see Do-eun who is standing outside, and sees them. Then, we see Suk approaching Hacker Chan to inquire about Mr. Yun BM. Chan says that most people have their own photos on their websites, but this guy hasn't put his own photo on them. Chan then pulls out his photo and says, "This guy looks so smart, yet he hasn't uploaded his own." Suk looks at the photo, which is from the On-World NGO. Suk remembers that Han Seol's first boyfriend, Park Jun, also worked at the On-World NGO. To find out about him, he comes to the On-World studio. The lady tells him, "I haven't found any information about Mr. Yun BM. I can't find any records," she says. "It seems he was probably a volunteer. I'll ask in our group if anyone knows him." She then shows Park Jun's file and says, "He was one of our members who died in Syria." He asks, "Did you know him?" She denies it and says, "Yes, their manager named Mr. Lee knows him." She says that he's out traveling. He's gone abroad. You can talk to him when he comes back. Meanwhile, we see Ju Young talking to Suk Sr. She asks for information about Han Seol's parents. She says, "You have a detective who's interfering with police work, so you have to keep him here." Here, Suk also arrives, and a person tells him that Detective Ju Young is here. He then starts talking to Ju Young. But Ju Young asks if he trusts her. She even collected her parents' insurance money. He then says that the entire family committed suicide, but only Han Seol survived. Just imagine, she was only a year old at the time. Here, we see Han Seol in a storage vault, looking at this painting. After looking at it, she says Syria. Then the scene shifts and we see Do-eun sitting in front of Pyo Sung. Pyo Sung asks, "You had that yacht repaired the day before. Why did you do that?" Do-eun explains that he did it at Han Seol's behest and that she gave him the key. Pyo Sung says, "You can do anything for her, right?" At the same time, he gets a call from Seol, which he doesn't pick up, but then he gets another call and he doesn't pick up again. We see Suk at his company, where he receives a call from Mr. Lee, who says, "You were asking about me. What do you want to talk to me about?" To which Suk replies, "I want to know about Yun BM." We then see Suk go to the airport to pick Mr. Lee up. They're both in the car, talking, and at the same time, we see a man following them. Mr. Lee tells him that Yun BM used to go with them. He was a volunteer. His family was very wealthy, but he still wanted to help the poor. He then starts saying that he's in Syria, meaning he's going to tell him what happened there. The man in the car behind them comes in front of them and slams on the brakes. Suk swerves the steering wheel to avoid the car, causing it to overturn on the divider. A terrible accident occurs, injuring both of them. Just then, a white car arrives, from which a lady steps out, and we are shown her face, which is none other than Seol. Suk opens his eyes slightly, sees Han Seol, and faints again. Han Seol's face is expressionless at this point. Then, the scene cuts to Suk in the hospital, where he regains consciousness. He remembers seeing Han Seol in front of him. Then the scene shifts and we see Ju Young talking to Pyo Sung. She says that Han Seol was the first to see Suk because she was there, and she called and told them. Just then, Han Seol appears. Han Seol gives her this card and says, "You can see my dashcam video," meaning you can watch the video. Ju Young starts asking how she got to the scene on time, and she says, "I don't know, but I just want to help you with this case." Then we see Pyo Sung, where this detective part comes in and says that Do-eun was with them when Suk had the accident, so he's not helping Han Seol. Pyo Sung says that someone else is helping Han Seol, who is with her through all this. We see them leave. As they leave, he calls out to Han Seol. Then we see Mr. Lee, who is in the hospital in critical condition. Suk is looking at him at the time, remembering what he said about his accident in Syria before that. Ju Young arrives and says, "What were you doing with that girl? You could have died." But we see Han Seol, who is secretly listening to all this. Ju Young is talking about how Han Seol always ends up at the crime scene and how someone else is the one who did it. While Ju Young is claiming Seol did it, she says that Do-eun was at the police station, meaning someone else helped her at the time. Suk starts saying, "Well, she has someone else helping her." Hearing this, Han Seol turns back and leaves, but doesn't hear the full story. Suk starts saying, "What if she had killed me and Mr. Lee at that place and left?" Suk says you guys can't see anyone else to blame except Han Seol. He says, "You're looking for the wrong person. The culprit is someone else." Suk then tells her everything. He means he went there because of Mr. Lee. Here, she learns that So-ho and Mr. Yun BM were both in the same area. He says that when Miss Kim died, Mr. Yun BM was also at the same party. This happens and we see Pyo Sung sitting there, his eyes fixed on two people. One is Han Seol, and the other is Yunbyeom. The scene returns to Yusuk, where he arrives at his bed, where Seol is already sitting. She arrives and tells him everything, saying that she was looking at the painting earlier. Then, she remembers that seeing it reminded her of Syria. She then remembers Soho's photo, and we see her approach the same woman. She had also come to the airport to talk to Mr. Lee. But on the way, she sees Yusuk's car, followed by a mysterious man. Seol remembers that this is the same car that keeps coming and going to her apartment. This means that this person is keeping an eye on them. As Seol returns, she sees that they have been in an accident. She gets out of her car and pulls Yusuk out of his car. We return to the present. Yusuk says, "You saved my life." But Seol replies, "If anyone else were in your place, I would have done the same thing. And if anyone else were in my place, she would have done the same thing." She asks who the real culprit is, to which he reveals that Mr. Lee was also in Syria. Yusuk feels that the truth will only be revealed when Mr. Lee regains consciousness. At the hospital, we see Yusuk's junior, whom Yusuk tells to take care of Mr. Lee. Keep an eye on him to see if anyone comes near him. Meanwhile, we see Ju Young watching the footage and noting the car's number plate. Meanwhile, Han Seol is with her boss. Just then, there's a man from Spain. He's talking about buying a painting. The president goes over and starts talking to him in Spanish. She then comes back to Seol and walks away with her. She explains, "I was fired from here for selling fake paintings. After that, I lived in Spain and worked in various homes there. I learned the language and found an art job there. It was with this help that I was able to return to the royal auction." After this, we see the president go to her office, and Seol also comes to her office. There, she is looking at a report showing an entire van burned down. It is being reported that the art in it was from the Cultural Foundation. It turns out that the art was purchased by none other than that same old man, and that too at her boss's behest. Seol realizes that all the paintings are missing from the van. Here, Yusuk sees the man's face and says that he has seen him before. Then, the scene returns to Seol, where a man brings her flowers and says that he does not know the name of the person who sent them. As soon as she sees these flowers, she remembers her first ex, Soho, who had given her similar flowers. There is also a box containing a phone with a photo of Soho and her. As soon as she sees the photo, she panics. We see her leave her office, sit down, open the phone, and find only one video in the gallery, which is of Soho. Here, he says, "If you want me to die, I'll do it for you. I'll die so you'll be happy." He also says, "You'll be responsible for my death." Then, we're shown a scene from the past where Soho proposes to her, but she refuses, saying, "I got a job at the royal auction." He becomes angry and throws away the ring. We're shown a scene where he is in Syria and calls her, and here he is becoming increasingly suspicious of her. But she tells him to break up with her. He says, "I'll die." And she says, "If you want to die, then die." We return to the present, where she is saddened by the same video. The scene shifts, and we see Mr. Yunbyeom at a memorial location. Soho's ashes are buried there, and he has brought this flower. We then see Ju Young and Yusuk agreeing to team up and set out to find the car. After searching the entire city, they find the car in a war yard, where Yusuk has already arrived. They search the car, but find nothing. Then, Yusuk finds a card. It belongs to Alpha Tower. Yusuk tells Ju Young to call the forensic team and extract all the fingerprints on it. We see Yusuk leave using his car. Here, he puts Alpha Tower on the map and reaches a company called Your Home. That company belongs to none other than Mr. Yunbyeom. We are then shown a scene where we see Mr. Yunbyeom in front of these flowers. He is writing "Happy Birthday" on this box, implying that he sent it to Han Seol. Here, Han Seol also understands that Mr. Yunbyeom sent it to her because he is left-handed and the writing was done by a left-handed person. Just then, Yusuk arrives, bearing flowers and a gift for her. But he starts saying, "We have to continue the drama we were enacting." Someone is watching them, spying on them, and she starts hugging him, and he comes inside. She tells him everything. "Someone sent me these flowers and gave me this gift." She refuses to open it. At that moment, her hand is also hurting. Han Seol starts saying that whoever sent this is left-handed. Mr. Yunbyeom is also left-handed. Then the scene shifts, and we see Do-eun where he is with the bar owner, and we learn that he is also left-handed. Here, they are both waiting because every year they celebrate Han Seol's birthday together. We see Yusuk, who says that they have to do something, and then gives her these papers. He says that this is an insurance policy, and we see that the nominee's name is Han Seol. This means that Yoo-suk has taken out an insurance policy on himself. Then, after seeing it, Han Seol becomes angry and tears up the papers, asking what is this joke? Yoo-suk tries to reason with her, saying that they have to do all this because they have to catch the real culprit. Han Seol starts to ask, what if I'm the culprit and I'm the one using you? But he says, I'm willing to be used because I trust you. She says, how do you know what guilt feels like when someone gets killed because of you? But Yoo-suk replies, yes, I know how it feels. He then says, I also had only one family member and I lost her. Yoo-suk then tells her, our parents divorced and our grandmother raised me and my sister. But after some time, my grandmother passed away, leaving me and my sister alone. After that, I got a job. He explains, my sister always took care of me. He then goes on to say, I became a cop to keep everyone safe, but I couldn't even keep my sister safe. I feel like all of this happened because of me, and my sister was killed because of me. The scene shifts to Mr. Lee, who has been injured. Here, she is treating his shoulder, and in the process, they both get close and they kiss. Just then, Yoo-suk receives a call, apparently from his junior, informing him that Mr. Lee has regained consciousness. He asks his junior to do something, then approaches Seol and tells him that Mr. Lee has regained consciousness. He leaves the hospital, and Han Seol is standing there, then calls someone. The scene shifts to a man who approaches Mr. Lee and puts poison in his bottle. He then leaves. We see Yoo-suk, who watches this man leave, and he is wearing gloves, which Yoo-suk recognizes. He follows him, and the man attacks him, leading to a fight. At this point, Yoo-suk's shoulder is already hurting, and the man hits him right there and runs away. Afterward, Yoo-suk arrives at the hospital, and we learn that his junior was lying down in Mr. Lee's place. He recorded everything there. He then retrieves the clothes from the dustbin, meaning that man's jacket. There, he finds an injection and a medicine which is a poison to kill the animals. We then see Yoo-suk go to Mr. Lee, who is alive. Mr. Lee tells him that So-ho and Yoon-byum were very good friends. He says that So-ho and Mr. Yoon-byum were not together. During the attack, So-ho was killed, and Mr. Yoon-byum was seriously injured trying to save him. We then show Mr. Yoon-byum, who has the same photo, and he burns it. We then return to the hospital, where Yoo-suk learns that So-ho wanted to die because he broke up with Han Seol. We then show Han Seol, where Yoo-suk messages her, saying, I know where So-ho's ashes are. Then, the two of them reach there and begin to talk. Here, Han Seol explains that she knows So-ho wanted to take his own life. She gives him the phone and shows him the video. She admits that she was scared at first because he didn't believe her, so she didn't show him the video. She then explains, I overheard you and Ju-young talking, saying you can manipulate anyone and that there's someone behind me who's helping me. Yoo-suk tells her that she must have misunderstood the conversation. But then she starts saying, I told him to go and die because he kept telling me he would die. That's why Yoon-byum wants revenge on me because he feels he died because of me. That's why he sent me these flowers. Yoo-suk replies, he sent us flowers. We'll send him something too. At the police station, they find out about this man. This means his fingerprints have been found. They learn that this man was in the special forces. They also learn that he was in Syria. Hyo-sung says, let's find this guy. Then we see Yoo-suk with Park sitting next to him. At the same time, we see Han Seol, who is carrying a sling, going inside, and she goes to meet Mr. Yoon-byum. Here, Han Seol has a camera in her bag. Mr. Yoon-byum isn't there yet, so she sits down. We see Mr. Yoon-byum at the place where he's deleting all the recordings. Here, Park is with Yoo-suk, who is checking the recordings, and he discovers that someone is deleting them. Yoo-suk says, this guy is too smart. He's getting all the recordings deleted. Here, we see Yoon-byum come to meet Han Seol. Han Seol first speaks to him nicely, then says, I know what you want. She then says, I know why you sent me that Syrian painting. Mr. Yoon-byum begins to explain himself. He says, I was raised an orphan. It feels like I had nothing when I grew up. We see Yoo-suk watching all this. Just then, Park finds a file. It's a photo of this man, and in it, Mr. Yoon-byum is sitting behind him. We then see Han Seol tell him, you should remove your mask and reveal your true self. She seems to ask, who are you? This prompts Yoon-byum to advance toward her. He says, do you think I want to blame you over So-ho's death? Do you think I'm taking revenge on you? Here, we see Yoon-byum's smile become a little bit more cunning. We also see Han-seol smiling a little bit. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk is watching all this and says that she's in danger. He then gets out of the car and starts running toward Han-seol. Here, Yoon-beom is talking to Han-seol. I saw Soho, how he feels everything, happiness, sadness, pain, because of one woman. I'd heard a lot about Han-seol, and I wondered what kind of woman she would be. Then I met you, and I realized you're the kind of woman men sacrifice for. Han-seol then says, that means you fell in love with the woman who killed your friend. He then says, if Soho were alive, I wouldn't have even considered this. But now my friend is gone. But we both are. Just then, the fire alarm goes off, and Yoon-beom remembers his trauma in Syria. He tells Han-seol to get out of here. She leaves. Suddenly, Yoo-suk comes into the hall, takes Seol's hand, and leaves. Meanwhile, Yoon-beom sees Yoo-suk wearing a cap through the security camera, taking Han-seol's hand away. Here, they got into the car, and Seol says, I don't know if someone triggered the alarm. Otherwise, I would have asked more questions. Yoo-suk says, I triggered it because I saw Yoon-beom on the garage camera, and I thought you were in danger because he tried to kill Mr. Lee. Here, Yoon-beom calls the same man and tells him not to come back to Korea. The company will cover all the expenses. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk and Han-seol discuss why he would plot such a big revenge plot for Soho and kill people. If he tried to kill Mr. Lee, it means he might have tried before. Yoo-suk says, we'll track all his steps from Syria to here. Han-seol says, don't get too involved in this. You could be in danger. But he says, it's okay. What happens to me? I don't care at all. But Seol says, but I do. That's all that matters. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee is playing cards. Yoo-suk comes to meet them, and Mr. Lee can't believe why Yoon-beom would try to kill him. Yoo-suk says, surely you know something that will expose his secret. Mr. Lee says, I don't know anything like that. Meanwhile, Hyo-sung is investigating and says he doesn't have any solid evidence against Yoon-beom. Just then, Hyo-sung's wife arrives, carrying food. She also looks at the whiteboard to see what case is currently underway. Meanwhile, another case comes to Yoo-suk. A lady is telling Yoo-suk that a truck carrying a painting was going by, and it burned. Yoo-suk says if the painting was so important, there wouldn't be just one person working for it. For any monumental painting, at least 5 or 6 people are involved because uninstalling, reinstalling, packaging, and even more so for such an expensive item and culture is incredibly difficult. I saw this with Stiller's painting when we went to recover it. Then the woman in front of him says, so, I want you to involve Han-seol in this project. You two are very close, aren't you? And she knows a lot about art. Yoo-suk says, okay. Meanwhile, Han-seol is talking to her team about the next auction, and if she isn't there, Sang-mi will handle this project from now on. Reach out to people so that a lot of VIPs can come to the VIP preview event. Here, another auctioneer named Na-hui is feeling very bad that she wasn't chosen. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk is looking at photos of the accident, and the condition of the truck reminds him of his sister's accident. He calls that hacker. The hacker says they've found something about Han-soo. Han-soo was a suspect in the murder of Yoo-suk's sister. Here we are shown Han-soo, who arrives in a yellow car and is inside the royal auction elevator. Han-seol and Han-soo don't interact at all, and she notices that he's also going to the top floor. Then Han-soo goes into the chairwoman's penthouse. The chairwoman asks him why he's here. Your job is to quietly dispose of the paintings. Han-soo replies, you raised me, and you've been ignoring me for a long time. I finished the job, so now I'm getting my commission. Meanwhile, Yoo-suk is also arriving at the royal auction building. He doesn't see Han-soo, and he's talking to Han-seol. I need your help with these 5 paintings. And in this type of accident, nothing happens to the driver. Only the passenger suffers, and this case is limited to one person. Only this fire is a change in both these cases. Then she asks, is it linked with your sister's accident? Yoo-suk says yes, and here he say that criminals repeat something only if it has been done the first time. So I suspect that all this has been done by one person, and I need your help. And here he shows the photos of the other paintings. Here, Han-seol sees all those paintings and says that they come from an outside company. But these are shell companies, and their real owner is none other than my boss. She personally selects profitable pieces for wealthy clients and takes her cut of the commission. But this one was imported for a mere $1 million and sold for billions. Because paintings don't have a fixed value, the final bid is the value. Policies are taken out on them, and if the painting gets damaged, they get that much money and insurance for that much. Yoo Suk is shocked. She says, they never burn paintings if they're real, so they switch them out. The fake paintings are burned. This is the chairwoman's tactic. There was another poor artist whom Chairman Kim had asked to make replicas. Fake paintings, but they were presented as authentic pieces, and this caused a huge scandal. Then, we find out that the artist was none other than her father. And then, the loan sharks would come to their house, and Chairwoman was with them, and they tortured Han Seol's father. Then, we're shown the painting that was in Chairwoman's locker. Han Seol says her father takes full blame, saying he made the fake painting. But my father had no idea it would be sold. He thought it would be on exhibition and then he died. As you know, I wanted to prove my father's innocence. That's why I joined the royal auction. I want revenge. And that's my sole purpose in life. Yoo Suk listens to everything and says, I know how it feels. I'm looking for the same person who ruined my sister's life and mine. But we have to prove where the actual painting is. Then she says, Chairwoman has a locker. I haven't been in it yet, but there are probably paintings in there. So Yoo Suk says, we'll work together. I'll help you. I'm an expert investigator. And you have knowledge of art. Meanwhile, the managing director tries to eavesdrop on their conversation. Just then, Doon arrives and chases the manager away. But he sees Yoo Suk and Han Seol together. Meanwhile, the chairwoman is giving all the information about Yoo Suk, including how he's an insurance investigator. Meanwhile, Han Seol is showing Yoo Suk the other paintings that Yoon Byum sent. Meanwhile, Yoo Suk is at a loss to understand how Yoon Byum knows so much about Han Seol. After that, Yoon Byum meets an old employee of Yoon Byum's company, Your Home. The employee explains that when he returned from Syria, he gradually fired all the secretaries and other employees and hired entirely new staff because he was having problems, as whenever he scanned his eyes, he couldn't enter the system. So he had the entire system changed overnight. Hearing this, Yoo Suk suspects that the retinal scans weren't being recognized. He also tells Mr. Lee that no matter how many surgeries you undergo, you can't change your eye pattern. This means he's not Yoon Byum. Here, Doon gives the photos of the 5 paintings he promised Han Seol, saying, take them, but what are you doing? She says, I'll tell you when the time comes. Doon asks, you also suspect Yoon Byum, right? As they leave in the car, Han Seol tells him everything. Doon says, this means Yoon Byum is Soho's friend. She says yes. He deliberately approached me. Doon then says, you should have gone to me instead of Yoo Suk. I'm hurt. I could have helped you a lot. Then she says, he's just like me, just like you and me. He's also like someone who is no one. Meanwhile, Doon and Han Seol go to meet an old friend of Yoon Byum's, with whom he's very close. But he hasn't spoken to him since he returned from Syria. Meanwhile, Yoon Byum's friend tells me that he broke up with all his friends. A few days ago, when I met him at a party, his appearance seemed the same, but his behavior had completely changed. Everyone I met said the same thing, and some even told me that Yoon Byum doesn't even recognize them. And here, Mr. Lee's mind suddenly flashes, and he calls Yoo Suk and says that in Onward Company, we're going to war, carrying out rescue operations, so our blood samples are taken. You can check through the DNA that Yoon Byum is real or someone else. And here, before the auction, there's going to be a preview where all the VIP clients will come and see the paintings, and here Han Seol is talking about the paintings. Meanwhile, Yoon Byum also comes into the auction and is talking to Yoo Suk about how Mr. Lee survived and that he's very happy. Yoo Suk says, you should tell the police everything. You can still make the right decision. Yoon Byum tells him, our legal team is very strong, and I have money. No one can do anything to me. Meanwhile, the chairwoman tells the man who bought the 5 paintings from her, it's okay, they're insured. You'll get your money. I'll show you the new paintings I've bought these days. This is a stellar painting. Here Han Seol informs Yoon Byum, the chairwoman wants to meet you. A drink is brought in, and Yoon Byum begins to have a seizure. He's given an injection and Yoon Byum recovers. Then, Yoo Suk takes the injection and gets into the car with his junior, saying they'll test his DNA. Meanwhile, Han Seol is terrified and shaking, but manages to control herself. Here, we find out that Doon's sister, Eun Hae, has come to the manager, and she tells him that she saw this above Han Seol's desk, and here are details of all the chairwoman's properties, and also of Felix's storage, and the manager says, oh, so she's digging up information about the chairwoman, and here, DNA testing is being done, and Yusuk is waiting. Meanwhile, Han Seol arrives to meet Yoon Byum, and she asks, do you want to tell me something? Yoon Byum says, you have to come with me somewhere, I want to show you something. Han Seol and Yoon Byum arrive in a car, surrounded by woods. He takes her to a house, and Han Seol observes the way the house is designed.
So Ho used to say about.
Then, she receives a message from Yusuk asking, where are you? She switches off her phone because she needs to know and confirm things. Then we see Yoon Byum is explaining everything, saying, this is here, that is there. Then Han Seol says, So-ho, and here the DNA report comes, showing that it matches So-ho's blood sample, not Yoon Byum's. Then, Yusuk calls Han Seol, but she doesn't pick up, so he runs away. Here, Yoon Byum, with tears in his eyes, looks at Han Seol and says, I forgot my own name. I thought you'd recognize me. But no, you were just looking at the paintings, and the owner of those paintings is Yoon Byum, a VIP. In a flashback, we see that So-ho comes to meet Han Seol when she's new to royal auctions. She sees a message from the chairwoman asking her to meet a client at the hotel. So-ho wonders where she's going. She replies, I'm running late for the meeting. I'll tell you later. So-ho says, I'm going to Syria. But she replies, we've already broken up, and now let me work in peace. So-ho says, oh, now that you've started working, you're not interested in me. But Han Seol wants revenge, so she doesn't listen to him and walks away. So-ho sees her getting into the hotel elevator with an old man, and he's drinking all night and breaking things. He's also in Syria, furious with Han Seol. Now at present, Yoon Byum says, that idiot gave his life so you could remember him, but it doesn't matter to you. You keep shifting from one man to another, and then I was rescued, and my friend died in my place. But the doctor made a mistake and thought I was Yoon Byum because we were wearing exactly the same clothes during the rescue. They did my entire surgery to model my face after his. I had so many surgeries, I can't even tell you. Then my life actually began. Even my voice changed, and I became Yoon Byum. Then I realized that it doesn't matter to you whether I live or die. You're not ashamed to go to a hotel with an old man. Han Seol says, it was for work, it was a meeting. I think you haven't changed at all. Yoon Byum says, I've become completely different.
I'm Yoon Byum.
I have power. I have money. Wherever I go, people bow down. You've noticed me too, haven't you? After success, women like you get close to men. My money seduced you. And look how stupid I am. I melted the moment I saw you. I loved you, but I hated you just as much. Here, Yusuk arrives at Yoon Byum's house, but it's not the house where Han Seol and Yoon Byum are, but the other house. Then Yusuk tells Ju Yong to quickly track down Han Seol. But Ju Yong says that Pyo Sung won't give permission. Ju Yong says, okay, come here to arrest me. He breaks the glass and enters the house, only to find that Yoon Byum has put up everyone's photos and done extensive research on everyone. Here, Yoon Byum tells Han Seol, I have a still. That's why you two met and ran away. I hated you, but I still wanted to make you my woman again. Now we can live together. I can do whatever you want. Han Seol says, stay away from me. You've gone crazy. Then, Yoon Byum forces himself on Han Seol. Meanwhile, the police arrive and see all the photographs, but they didn't find Yusuk. Then Pyo Sung asks them to track down the whereabouts of Han Seol and Yusuk. Here, to protect herself from Yoon Byum, Han Seol removes a sharp object from an art piece that looks like a sword. Meanwhile, Yoon Byum says, I'm already dead for you.
I can do it again.
I won't leave you as long as I'm alive. And then suddenly the lights go out, and shortly after, the police arrive. They're searching for Han Seol and Yusuk. Shortly after, Yusuk also arrives. Meanwhile, Han Detective Ju Yong sees bloodstains and is tracking them. Then she sees Han Seol, and there's a body, which turns out to be Yoon Byum's. Ju Yong tells her not to move. Just then, Yusuk arrives. Han Seol has blood on her hands, and Yoon Byum is dead. And here, the episode ends abruptly. See you in the next episode.